This is the Sunday stream opening song because the other song is copyrighted. La 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 la. Oh look, here comes Dog Cat Fox.
Hi, Sky.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Sunday stream. The stream I do on Sundays because Sunday is the day to stream on Sundays. Hope everybody's doing well on this beautiful Sunday morning. And I'm also wondering why I'm wearing headphones when the entire show is going to be me reading articles. So I'll take off the headphones. There we go. Yes, hope you're all doing well today on this beautiful Sunday morning. We have breaking news. Breaking news. I didn't imagine we'd be doing this today, but it's breaking news. So how could I know ahead of time? I'll get to the breaking news momentarily, but first, who's joining me on this beautiful Sunday morning? Noah Sencio. Good morning, Shio Gorath. Good morning, Mike R. Good morning, Zed the Snarky. Good morning, Mike Savage. Blarg. Keeverdam, thank you so much, and good morning, Keeverdam. And Keeverdam has posted, as always, the links to our various GoFundMes for our friends Moonshock, Natalie, Angela Ariaga, Rhonda, and Blind Press. And as I highlighted in the previous stream, please take a look at Blind Press in particular. Blind Press and her family need help paying for a new water heater. They don't have hot water. And in the frozen Great White North, that is kind of an important thing. So if you take a look at that one in particular, if you can donate to any of them, please do so. If you can't, that's fine. But if you can share those out on social media, that would be appreciated. So thank you ahead of time for that. And thank you, Keeverdam, as always, for providing those links. Who else is here? Apex Algorithm Guy, good morning. Advocatus Diaboli, good morning. Derek LaRue, thank you so much, Derek, as always, for your continued support and generosity. Really appreciate it. Hope you're having a good Sunday morning and hope you enjoy the show. Somnambual Nation, good morning. Kiro Soldier, good morning. Shortline 819, good morning. Vader 35, good morning. JB, good morning. You're a Ridiculous Lunatic, good morning. Cephas Wolf, good morning. Dixie Rose 63, good morning. Ryan R, good morning. Simon Willikins, good morning. And No Name, good morning to you. Good morning to you. Is he staticky or is it just me? Uh-oh. Am I having issues? Let me know in the chat. My audio is slightly distorted, but not a problem. Slightly distorted. Well, I don't know. Let me move the mic around a little bit and tighten some cables. Do I sound okay now? Yes, no, or otherwise? Let me know in the chat. There is static. Well, I'm not sure. All my cables are where they should be. All my settings are where they were yesterday or the day before. Is it continuing? Sounds okay, says JB. Uh-oh. Well, I mean, if it's terrible, if it's unlistenable, I'll have to, I don't know. Still static, but you're good to proceed. Bit of static on some sounds, nothing major. Okay, well, if it gets to the point where it becomes annoying or can't listen at all, let me know. And I will, wrap up for the day and try something else later on. Okay, loose connection, not the end of the world. That is disconcerting. Give me a second. Let me reboot my audio software and see if that makes a change. 1 second. Okay, I should be coming through. Let me know if the static is continuing. If it is, well, I guess we're just stuck with it for the time being. And if not, I guess things are good. Anyway, so breaking news. Yeah, this just happened. This just was posted within the last hour or so. Helicopter carrying Iranian President Raisi crashes, local media reports. So here we go. A helicopter carrying Iranian President Ibrahim Raisi crashed while visiting a northern region his condition is currently unknown, Iranian state news agency IRNA reported on Sunday. The aircraft, which was also carrying Foreign Minister Hussein Amir Abdullahian, I'm probably screwing that up as well, came down in East Azerbaijan province, and emergency crews have so far been unable to reach it due to foggy conditions, IRNA said. It is unclear what the exact status is of Raisi's is it Ricey's helicopter. 20 rescue teams and drones have been sent to the area where the helicopter came down. The pair, along with a group of dignitaries, were on board the helicopter returning from a ceremony for an opening of a dam on Iran's border with Azerbaijan when it, quote, crashed upon landing in Varzakhan region on Sunday, IRNA English reported. Quote, 20 rescue teams and drones have been sent to the area, but due to the impassability of the area, its mountainous and forest conditions, as well as unfavorable weather conditions, especially heavy fog, the search and rescue operation will take time, IRNA said. IRNA also reported, citing locals, the helicopter crashed in the Dismar forest area between the villages of Ozi and Pur Davud. Residents in northern Varzakhan, East Azerbaijan province, said they heard noises from the area, it added. Iran's Interior Minister Ahmed Vahidi said one of the helicopters was forced to make a hard landing due to foggy weather conditions. Quote, now different rescue groups are moving towards the area, but given that it is foggy and the unsuitable weather and the conditions, it may take some time until they reach where the helicopter is, unquote, said Vahidi during a televised address posted on Telegram by Iranian state news agency IRNA. He added that there has been some contact with the passengers on the helicopter, quote, but given the area is a bit complicated, making contact is difficult, and we are waiting, inshallah, for rescue groups to quickly reach the location where the accident, where the helicopter is, and give us more information, unquote. Quote, from the beginning of this incident being reported regarding the president's helicopter, Red Crescent relief forces and auxiliary military and law enforcement forces have started a widespread effort to find this helicopter, unquote, Tanzim news agency reported. Quote, some of the president's companions on this helicopter were able to communicate with central headquarters, raising hopes that the incident could have ended without casualties, Tanzim added. The helicopter was part of a convoy of 3 helicopters. 2 of those helicopters were carrying ministers and officials who arrived at their destination safely, according to Tanzim. And that is the story as it sits right now from CNN. So, helicopter crashes, fate of president of Iran unknown. And, of course, all sorts of speculation and conspiracy theories will, of course, follow. But that is what it is at present. Thank you, JB. Boom goes the dynamite. Well, I mean, depending on the circumstances, in a part of the world that is already, let's say, tense, to put it mildly, this will certainly not help matters. And like I say, the cause of it will be a story for other days to come. But anyway, that was just something that happened just before I started doing the show. So I thought I'd throw that in there as part of the Sunday morning festivities. But let's get to the first of 3 topics I'm going to be covering today as planned. Now, this is going to be short because it's just a rant. It's just me ranting about what's happening with Star Wars. And it's a small thing in the grand panoply that is the disaster that Star Wars is these days. But it's something that bugs me. And so I thought I'd talk about light whips. Let's talk about light whips for a second, shall we? And I apologize for those of you that are not Star Wars nerds, but I saw this yesterday, and I kind of already knew this was coming. I think I already said something about it in earlier weeks, but just seeing it for the first time, yeah. So, first look at a lightsaber whip in The Acolyte. The Acolyte being the latest of the dumpster fire Star Wars series that Disney is pumping out. This one in particular, though, is the showrunner is the former assistant to Harvey Weinstein, who was operating as his assistant during the time that he was doing some terrible things to people. I won't go into the details because this is a family show, but you already know if you know. But anyway, The Acolyte, this show, as I understand it, takes place in the nebulous territory created by Disney of the High Republic. The High Republic takes place about 1,000 years or something, or 100 years or whatever before the events of the Star Wars movies as we know them, and is just that sort of undefined area of Star Wars timeline history where Disney decided to play with stuff. And part of this is they've got a whole new setup of Jedi and politics and wars and all types of things that really make no sense in the long run, but hey, it's Star Wars. But one thing that does make sense is that Jedi, classically, are there to do 2 things: defend and protect. Defend and protect. Part of this is exemplified in the weapon that they use, which is a lightsaber, which, classically speaking, is used to deflect blaster bolts and only clash when needed with other lightsabers. Jedi do not attack. They do not take aggressive action. It is part of their entire philosophy. Now, in the real world, could an organization like the Jedi actually function and exist in some kind of monastic, sort of passive, or essentially pacifist sort of situation? Probably not. But we're not talking about reality here. We're talking about the fantasy of good versus evil, right versus wrong. There's a good, there's a bad. It's very binary. A light whip. Okay. In the expanded universe, those things that took place before, during, and after the original series of movies that were created by other artists and other writers and so on, the expanded universe expanded on the situations and the characters established in the original 3 movies over the course of many, many, many years, many novels, comic books, cartoons, all types of things. And one of the things that was established is that there was such a thing called a light whip. It was basically this long chain of metal links that also electrified together to turn into basically a lightsaber that was a functional whip. And who used a light whip? Well, it was a character called Lumia, if I'm pronouncing it correctly. She was a Darksider. She wasn't a Sith. She was a fallen Jedi of some kind, I think, and she was a bad guy. And the only time you ever saw light whips in the expanded universe is when they were used by villains, bad people. Why? Because what is the function of a whip? What is its primary function? What do you have to do to wield a whip? You have to make a violent action to make it work. And what is it used for? It is to cause pain. It is to intimidate. It is to hurt people. It is to attack. It is not a weapon used by a pacifist. It is not something used by someone who is just there to defend and protect. Now, I know a lot of people say, well, wait a second, Scribe. Indiana Jones used a whip. Yeah, but Indiana Jones isn't a Jedi. He's not a monastic pacifist. And also, his whip could be used as a tool for like swinging across cliffs and things and other stuff because it was not a laser that cut through everything. So the idea of a Jedi having as their default personal defense item a whip is completely antithetical to the Jedi. A Jedi would not use a whip. And yet, in the infinite wisdom of Disney Star Wars, yes, we're going to have our Jedi of the High Republic era using a light whip as an aggressive first strike weapon. No. The answer is no. If anything, best gives evidence as to how Disney knows absolutely nothing about the toys they have bought to play with. It's something like this. So I'm not going to watch The Acolyte. I'll leave that to those that do that professionally. I'm not paying for Disney Plus. But just this idea all by itself, a Jedi. And look, she's so cool. She's got a light whip. She's so much more special than the other Jedi. Yeah, no. Either the Jedi and their philosophy means something in the course of the canon and in the course of the conflict between the light and the dark side, or it doesn't. And to Disney, it doesn't. And it bugs me a lot. But hey, it's just one more complaint amongst a billion in regards to what Disney has done with the properties they have purchased, whether it's Marvel, Star Wars, or otherwise. So that's just my little tiff on that. That was the first item for today. But before I get any further, holy cats, Fostonia, thank you so much. Appreciate it very much. Very generous of you. Hi, Ascribe, sending some love and good vibes to you and to the chat. Quick question. Who is the person you are using as your avatar? I have no idea. So the story behind my avatar. When I started my channel long time ago, I needed an avatar that I wouldn't be like, copyright claimed for, that I couldn't. And I'm not an artist particularly, so I can't make up my own with any confidence. So I just used a piece of public domain art, and that is The Wanderer Above the Sea Fog by Caspar David Friedrich from, I think, 1890 something or other. Very well-known painting, appears on a lot of book covers. I think I saw it most particularly in covers for Frankenstein editions and things. And at one time, early on in my channel's life, I mused, boy, it would be cool if I had a version of this painting, this very famous painting, but with the character of the Wanderer Above the Sea Fog in sort of profile, to sort of, with the same background and everything. I was just musing on a stream or something. And then a miracle occurred. And the miracle has a name, and that name is Knight of Charlemagne, who I have credited in every single video or stream I have done since that time, who just out of the blue sent me this masterpiece art that was a recreation of the Wanderer Above the Sea Fog, except with the character turned towards the camera. And I don't know how he did it. It looks almost like a perfect rendition of what a separate version or variant of the original painting would look like. And I don't know where he got his sources from. I don't know where the picture comes from. It was just his creation, and he gave me full rights to it, free and clear. And I've been thankful for it ever since. And here we are. So I don't know who it is. I don't know what elements were used to make it up, but it is a unique piece of art. And yeah. Does it look anything like me? No. I have a feeling that our character here looks far, far better than I do by any discerning eye. But yeah, so that's a slightly long-winded origin story of the Avatar. So I don't know. But whoever it is and whatever elements were used to make it up, I'm very appreciative of it. But it is otherwise a original piece of art, sort of fan art of not only the original piece, but on my behalf. And without without any other prompting, and I'm been grateful for it ever since, and I really appreciate Knight of Charlemagne for having done so. So there you go, JB. Thank you so much. I try to make a light suit. I'd be invincible. Yeah, imagine all the deathly hugs you could give with a lightsaber suit. But anyway, thank you, JB, and thank you, Fostonia. And let's move on to the main event, because I would bookended this show, or the plan was to have a little thing at the front with the Jedi thing, a little thing at the back with an update on a previous story I looked at. But in the middle, a sort of update on our friend, Vice President Kamala Harris. Because Kamala Harris has been a fascination of mine in her political ins, outs, and otherwise over the last couple of years. And she's been busy, and she's getting more busy as time leads up to the election. And so let's talk about something that happened about, I guess almost a week ago now, where she was on a stage at a forum, and she said something that rankled me, let's say. And I said so on Twitter at the time. Harris reflects on breaking down barriers. Sometimes, quote, you need to kick that effing door down, unquote, to accomplish your dreams. I'll have more to say on this. Maybe it'll be mentioned in the CNN article. We'll find out. Vice President Kamala Harris on Monday reflected on her experiences as a barrier-breaking public figure. Not a public figure that completely failed in her own presidential campaign and was basically gifted the vice presidency because of her gender primarily, but her skin color was an added bonus. No, she totally broke that door down, guys. She didn't even bruise her shoe, trust me. Telling a crowd in blunt terms that sometimes they need to take it upon themselves, strive. Oh, CNN, even an article that's almost a week old now, you can't even bother to reread your own copy and make corrections. I'm having such nostalgia. Okay, that sometimes they need to take it upon themselves, strive for their own opportunities and successes, even if others may doubt them. Quote, we have to know that sometimes people will open the door for you and leave it open, Harris said in a moderated conversation with actor and comedian Jimmy O. Yang in Washington. Never heard of him. Quote, sometimes they won't. And then you need to kick that effing door down, she added, to applause and laughter from the crowd. She added, quote, excuse my language, unquote, as the crowd continued to laugh and applaud. Okay, so the article may mention something to this effect as we go, but I just want to say, and I have said this from the beginning of time, as far as my political awareness has been, I expect, and I, in a way, at least for the sake of things, demand that our public officials comport themselves with a level of decorum and professionalism that exceeds the modern, or I should say the common man, let's say. And in something like this, where the vice president of the United States is on a public stage and in a public forum, not in some kind of hot mic situation, not in a casual conversation that was overheard, but on a public forum in front of the world, starts using foul language as a punctuation point to a claim of bravery or something that she does not at all possess, it ticks me off. It really does. There's something that exists beyond yourself when you are representing the office of either the executive in this country or a senatorial position or representative position. There's something beyond yourself that you have to take into account. You are not there for yourself. You are there on behalf of the people you represent. And in that wise, you should behave differently professionally than you would talking to your friends. Okay, I practice this in my personal life when it comes to going to the workplace and operating in my job. I don't talk like I do privately in the professional environment. And I, at least at the very minimum, expect that of our public leaders. This is one of the reasons why, and I complained about this all the time during Lords of the Night, I was no big fan of Donald Trump's bedside manner when it came to his statesmanship. And I'm certainly no fan of it in Kamala Harris being on a stage during an election season and just like acting like a badass by dropping F-bombs in public forums. Not a fan. And it really irked me. It's not the end of the world, obviously. This is not a breaking point for anything. I wasn't going to vote for Biden and Harris anyway. But just further adds to the deterioration of the idea of what it is to represent an office. All right. If you're the vice president, if you're the president, what your real name is, your personal identity and everything else, we're talking about identity so much these days, takes a back seat to the importance of the office you represent and the people to which that office is connected. That's just my personal philosophy on it. Okay, you have to set aside certain things about yourself when you're representing your position, your elected position, or your appointed position in the case of Kamala Harris. But anyway, moving on in the article, Harris's statement came as she marked Asian American and Pacific Islander Heritage Month, reflecting on her experience as the country's first female, first Black, and first Asian American vice president. And as I say so often, none of those things say anything about her capabilities or merit. But hey, there you go. That's what's important. Harris told Yang that people should never use others' preconceptions of what they're capable of to limit their own dreams and desires. Quote, "Don't ever carry as a personal burden your capacity to do whatever you dream and aspire to do based on other people's limited ability to see who can do what," unquote, Harris said. Really? Is that true? You want to look at some of the policies that the Biden administration has been promoting over the last 3.5 some odd years? Underscoring people's race and gender first and foremost and dismissing other people on the basis of theirs. Okay. Harris this year has become a key figure for President Joe Biden's administration. Has she, though? Has she? And become a key figure? She's the vice president. She's the second name on the ticket. She's become a key figure this year? Okay. Harris this year has become a key figure for President Joe Biden's administration and campaign, crisscrossing the country, making points that might be difficult for the president, an older white man, to make himself. Oh, okay. Don't dismiss what anybody thinks you can do based on what they see. But obviously, Kamala Harris has a better ability to promote certain ideas than this guy over here based on what he looks like. Okay. Her efforts have included serving as the administration's point person on abortion rights. It's a state-by-state issue now. Congratulations. I don't know what to tell you. Becoming the first sitting president or vice president to visit an abortion provider and traveling to states such as Florida and Arizona, where new court rulings and laws have thrown into doubt the future of abortion access. Well, abortion access in those states, because it is now a states' rights issue after Roe got defeated. And why did Roe get defeated? Well, for several reasons, but primarily among them, and this is something that I've been fascinated by every time I see a tweet about it from the Democrats. Biden and Harris collectively had the White House, the Senate, and the House for the first period of time in their administration up until the midterms. And they could have attempted. I'm not saying they would have succeeded. Okay. Probably not succeeded, but they could have attempted to make a good faith effort to codify Roe into law. Instead of having Roe versus Wade be a judicial opinion, a precedent that effectively just was advice and not law, they could have actually worked to try to pass a law, change the Constitution, pass a federal law to make the benefits of Roe v. Wade into law, and therefore not something that just existed at the pleasure of the current Supreme Court of the United States. But they didn't. And yet they keep complaining and they keep saying, and I've seen Biden do this several times, if you elect Democrats, and this was like in the last midterms or whatever, if you elect Democrats, we will codify Roe. And like, why didn't you do it beforehand? Why haven't the Democrats been trying to do this since Obama's days? They haven't, or at least haven't done it in any way that has been noticeable by anyone, and if they keep complaining about it. Because you see, if they actually did not have Roe v. Wade as a wedge issue, they'd have less things to complain about for political points and votes. That's why they never really make any real effort to do so, because it's so controversial and they probably fail anyway. So let's just have Roe v. Wade sit out there and be a precedent we'll just lean on rather than actually taking the effort to do our jobs and actually, argue over legislation. But anyway, I digress. Harris on Monday also discussed the administration's efforts. You want to put an apostrophe? Administrations. Okay, that's plural. You're talking about possessive to the administration. You want an apostrophe there. CNN, okay, Chris Cillizza, you don't have Chris Cillizza as an excuse anymore. All right? He was fired a couple of years ago now. You need to read your copy and get someone who knows how to edit and revise these things. You look like, even more so than before, you look like morons. And I'm having such flashbacks to Lords of the Night, I can't tell you. Harris on Monday also discussed the administration's efforts to protect the legal right to an abortion, making reference to the 2022 Supreme Court decision that overturned Roe v. Wade. Quote, "A decision has been made that takes from the American people a fundamental freedom to make decisions about one's own body," unquote, Harris told Yang. No, a decision has been made that the precedent of Roe v. Wade does not constitute law and is in fact by law currently unconstitutional and resolves down to the states to make their individual decisions about how to handle abortion. That's what happened. Okay, the rights that are not in the federal government's territory are then dissolved down to the states. That's how it all works. You guys did nothing to change federal law. You had a floating phantom law sitting there, kind of like DACA, without actually having to go through the effort of going through the legislative process. You just let it sit out there so you don't have to do the work. And then, amazingly enough, eventually it faded out, and now you get to complain about it fading out when you never did the work in the first place to make it law. Was taken away? No. The rights as under law were defended and affirmed by the Supreme Court. Don't know what to tell you. Anyway, think about what that's taking us back to. That one does not have the right to exercise authority over issues I call heart and home, issues that are fundamental to what should be a right to decide to start a family or not. It is not a right until you change the law, until you change the Constitution. It is not a right, Kamala. It's not. And it is amazing that you're talking about people's autonomy to make their own decisions medically, given your opinions during certain global health issues and mandates and such. I won't say too much more because I don't know what the YouTube algorithm will say to me, but otherwise, you know what I'm talking about. It's amazing. Anyway, Harris also reflected on efforts to curb gun violence, expressing optimism that young voters who have borne the brunt of gun violence in schools will lead the charge in effecting change. How? What are you hoping that young voters are going to do? Quote, "When our young leaders start voting in their numbers on so many of these issues, I believe we are going to see a sea change in terms of how we address it, because our young leaders in particular are very practical and they want to see things done. And what I love about them is that they're not gonna wait for us to figure it out. They're gonna do it," unquote, she said. Why can't you figure it out? Why can't you? Why can't the adults in the room figure it out now? You got to wait for some kids to do it for you? What special knowledge do young voters possess that you don't, Kamala? That you and the rest of the government don't? That you and the rest of every other Congress or president that has come before us complaining about gun issues has not gotten. What do you think they're going to do? Overturn the Second Amendment? That would be something. But do you have any ideas on that? Well, we don't get any more from CNN on that. So there you go. CNN, you never fail to fail. But that's just one story. And I'm going to stop the screen. See, one of the things about these articles and things, if I bring it up once, I click through all of the extra pop-ups and all that stuff, and I can have the article ready to go. If I just then copy over the URL, I have to start all over again. So I'm going to stop the screen and then present the next article. This is behind the scenes. This is behind the scenes ridiculousness. Anyway, let's take a look at some more Kamala Harris news. We'll start off with this. Harris says more Indian American representation is needed in government. Now, what was she saying before about what to say to people and what not to do on the basis of what you look like or who you are and everything? Okay, well, I guess there's a desirable type of person that should be in government based purely on their ethnicity. But anyway, at a summit this week, Harris appealed to South Asian voters. With her approval rating down among Indian Americans, a progressive Hindu group walked out. Oh, that's a success story if ever I heard one, isn't it? Addressing a crowd of Indian Americans this week, Vice President Kamala Harris asserted the importance of South Asians running for office, saying there's not nearly enough compared to the group's size in the U.S. Oh, we need to have proportional representation in government based on the population demographics of the country? Oh, so racial quotas is what you're encouraging. Oh, okay. Sure, why not? Indian Americans are now the most populous, quote-unquote, Asian alone group, I don't know what that means, in the country, surpassing Chinese Americans in September. This means 4.4 million people identified themselves as, quote, Indian alone or 100% Indian in the 2020 U.S. Census, marking a 55% increase over the course of a decade. I would hope they would mark themselves as Americans and not Indians, but what do I know? Despite that, there are just 5 Indian American members of Congress out of the 535. Okay, well, how would Kamala Harris propose to solve for this problem? Harris called on that to change in remarks Wednesday at the nonprofit organization Indian American Impact's annual summit, Desi's Decide in Washington, D.C. Quote, over the years, we've had so much more participation by Indian Americans in the electoral process running for office, Harris said. Quote, but the numbers are still not reflective of the size of the growing population, unquote. She encouraged the group to participate in any way possible and to regard this upcoming election as vital to their lives. It's not a group. It's not a group. It is a demographic. They are not all part of the same club just on the basis of their shared possible ethnicity. It's not a group. I tell you what, if there's like 3 semantic things that bug me most and have over the course of the years, it's group versus demographic, it's immigrant versus legal immigrant and illegal immigrant, and what was the other one? There was a third one. Oh yes, bigotry and racism. All of these things are different things, but semantically they keep being commingled or conflated, and it always irritates me. And group versus demographic is one of them. Experts say that Indian Americans are a demographic. Oh, well, thanks, NBC. I'm glad that you finally corrected yourself, at least momentarily. Are a demographic politicians can't ignore this election season, as they have the potential to be the deciding vote in some of the regions where they're concentrated. But despite the vice president's appeal to South Asians at the event, the community is looking at both her and President Joe Biden with a critical eye. Many have mixed feelings. Oh, so they're not a monolith? They have their own opinions despite the fact they might have a shared ethnic origin? Oh, gosh, okay. Biden's presidential approval rating has dropped among AAPI communities. Karthik Ramakrishnan. Am I saying that correctly? Karthik Ramakrishnan, founder and executive director of AAPI Data, told NBC News last month. Among Indian American voters, Biden has 43% approval. Well, that means that he has, 57% disapproval. Harris's approval rating among Indian voters dropped from 62% in 2022 to 56% in 2023. Well, golly gee, I thought that because she was the first female, Black, and Indian American, vice president, that would just have her be a shoo-in for all of those demographics. It's amazing, huh? It's almost as if, again, people don't operate in monolithic lockstep simply on the basis of what they look like. I know. Crazy idea. The progressive organization Hindus for Human Rights staged a walkout during Harris's speech at the Desi's Decide Summit in protest of the Biden administration's handling of Israel's war in Gaza. Quote, our tradition of speaking out against injustice is part of a long and proud political movement inspired by figures like Mahatma Gandhi and Dr. B.R. Ambedkar, who use their faith as a foundation for social and political activism, the group said in a news release. Quote, just as they fought for the rights and dignity of all people, we too fight against the ongoing genocide in Gaza and elsewhere, unquote. It's an issue that's important to young South Asian voters this cycle, some of whom, how many is some? Okay. Some of whom say they're questioning whether to vote Democratic for the first time in their lives. Before I continue, before this disappears, thank you, JB, so much. Appreciate it. Let me click on the little like things here. Okay. With Biden as president and Kamala as VP, people will be cooking indoors over open flames in no time. Oh, yeah, we were losing our gas stoves. Yeah. What happened to the Green New Deal, by the way? Does anybody talk about the Green New Deal anymore? Does that even come up? Do they ever make any moves on that at all? Did that bring us any more success or something? I don't know. I'm gonna have to bring that up at some point. Oh, I should zoom in on this. Pardon. I forget that the text on this isn't always that great, and I have to. Okay, let's keep going. Quote, our walkout was a direct expression of our conviction and pain over these issues. We believe it is our moral duty to hold government officials accountable, no matter the platform, unquote, Hindus for Human Rights said. During her speech at the summit, Harris emphasized the importance of expressing desires for change at the polls. Quote, this election coming up in 6 months, I think, is presenting a question to each of us, unquote. Of course it is. It's an election. Elections are about questions. Who will you vote for? Okay. Quote, what kind of world do we want to live in, and what kind of country do we want to live in? And one of the ways that we answer that question is to seek office and to participate in elections, knowing that the outcomes of those elections matter in fundamental ways, unquote. And tautology is tautology. Though Indian Americans still don't see themselves represented predominantly in government, Harris assured them change was coming. She cited herself as evidence of that. Oh, okay. Well, how are you going to make change, Kamala? Quote, you are going to find yourselves invariably in rooms where you are the only one who looks like you, the only one who has had your life experience, unquote, she said. You know what? Every room I walk into, personally, and this is me talking as scribe here, every room I walk into, you know what? You know what sets me apart? I'm the only one who has had my life experience, and as a result of that, I should be given everything. Right? I am the most unique person who walks into a room because nobody else has had my life experience. And my life experience, whatever it is more important than anybody else's. It really is. What a wonderful statement. Quote, you must know that you are not alone. You are not alone. I am here with you. Though you're far. I don't know the lyrics. You are not anyway. You are not alone. There is so much that we still have to do as a country. As a country, you're not talking about a country. You're talking about a demographic within a country. Hey, how about we're all Americans first and foremost, right? How about we're all Americans? How about we start there, regardless of what you look like? If you're a citizen of this country, you're an American. I don't care what your skin color is. I don't care what your ethnicity is, where your grandparents came from, or whatever else, or even if you're a citizen because you came here from somewhere else and became a citizen. You're an American now. Let's work as Americans, not divvy everybody up on things that say nothing about who you are. I know, it's a crazy idea. And a lot of the work that we each do, which is why we are here together, is born out of a belief in the promise of America. And dare I say that, I am empirical evidence of the promise of America. You are empirical evidence of the promise of affirmative action. You are empirical evidence of the promise of DEI for people to get in positions of authority they don't necessarily merit. That is what you are empirical evidence of, Kamala. I hate to tell you this. I know it's a shocker. And not that kind of shocker. But yeah. Okay. I got one more story for Kamala today. And I'll get to that momentarily. Let's see. Going up the chat here real quick. You're ridiculous lunatic. I'd like to not have a senile man as head of state. Yeah, so we are getting some change. Yeah, we've had almost 4 years of what we've had. Do we want to continue having that? And getting people into office on the basis of what they look like. Is that representation? Is that how that's how they want to see representation? Just visual cues. Visual cues. Bold sign. That's an awful racist thing for her to say. It might be just a little bit. Check your logic. And her husband? Well, her husband, I don't even remember his name. I couldn't care less about her husband. Whatever. How did she get her job? Because she's female. Right? I mean, she's correct to a certain extent in the sense that she is empirical evidence of what she's preaching, right? Biden said he had binders full of women. Remember binders full of women? I've got binders full of women. I think that was Biden, wasn't it? I can't remember now. Anyway, but Biden specifically said he was going to pick a vice president on the basis of their being female first and foremost. Everything else was secondary at best, but female for sure. So Kamala Harris qualifying for the job was already partially a shoo-in for something that she had no control over and did not earn or anything else. That's the way it is. Okay. Oh, Romney was the one that got made fun. Was it Romney with binders full of women? I apologize. I get everything's my entire life is concatenating into one little sphere. And it's because it's my life experience everybody. That's right. I apologize. That's my mistake. That was Romney, not Biden. Different party, different era. But it feels like, right? It feels like something. Made just as much sense when Romney said it. All right. Now I'm a bit embarrassed. It's my early onset Alzheimer's. That's what it is. But let's get to this last story. This one made me chuckle. Because, boy, oh boy, when you think the chips are down, think of your opportunities. You ready for this? I haven't even considered this one. This is a long shot theory. A Kamala Harris 2026 run for California governor could make sense if she and Biden aren't reelected. Election to state's top job would prove her a serious presidential candidate later. Okay, so let's just think about this for a second. She ran for president back in 2020. 2016, pardon me. She failed. Sorry, no, 2016, 2020. I'm sorry. I am really, bleh. I'm all over the place today. Anyway, 2020, she ran for president. She failed. She couldn't even, in the primaries, get her own state to back her up. She spent a $40 million war chest on nothing. And her last political ad of note was her doing a dance routine. And then she gets plucked out of abject failure. Everybody had stopped talking about Kamala Harris by the time we got to the primaries. They weren't even talking about her as anything. And then Biden swoops in after winning the primaries and getting the nomination, plucks Kamala Harris out of effectively obscurity. She would have nothing after that. And turns her into vice president. Now, she failed trying to become president herself. And even after a term of being vice president, apparently there's no confidence in her even being a viable presidential candidate on her own. So now she has to go become governor of California because, California really loves Kamala Harris, as we've seen. And she has a shot at becoming governor of California if somehow. Then maybe she'd be a serious presidential candidate. But okay, let's listen to the argument for this one. For most of the early and teen years of this century, haven't heard it put that way before, but interesting, Kamala Harris was one of the weakest of vote getters in Democratic-dominated California, even while she held 3 electoral offices in succession. Her marginal vote-getting performances have been mostly glossed over since she became President Biden's backup as vice president. Mostly glossed over? Yeah, because there wasn't anything to crow about. And really, the only things I ever hear about Kamala Harris when she's first brought up are her gender and her ethnicity, or her mix thereof. That's about it. What happens if the Biden-Harris ticket loses this fall, though, and Harris is left without public office for the first time in 22 years? I think we'd all be better off. But, sorry, that's not the answer you're looking for. Harris will have just turned 60 a couple of weeks before Election Day, an age when many politicians are just getting started and almost exactly 30 years younger than former U.S. Senator Dianne Feinstein when she died in office. Not exactly a retirement scenario. How much is Kamala Harris worth right now? How much money does she have? And you can just bet that if she did not go into politics again after this election cycle, she would have a career in the lecture circuit forever. You'd have organizations just falling over themselves to pay her to come speak and say something ridiculous as a keynote at one of their events or something. I don't have any fear for Kamala Harris. Yet, if she and Biden lose, Harris would have a lot of proving to do about her electoral appeal before she could even think about running for president again, as she briefly did in 2020. And I said 2016 because I tell you what, my sense of timelines and everything else has been so interrupted by lockdowns and overwhelming information over the years. I can't believe it's 2024. I can't believe I'm 45. It just, everybody out there, I tell you what, if you think you've got all the time in the world, make the most of it now because it goes by so quick. I just saw my father yesterday. First time I've seen him since his remission diagnosis. And because of the way that things hashed out, it's the first time I've seen him since before he left the hospital. And he's getting better. It's a slow process. He's not doing too great right now, but we're looking forward to more improvements. But the condition of my parents, and I didn't really realize this until recently, has up until recently been kind of frozen in time. Like they're just eternal presences in my life. And to see my father in such a weakened state, I mean, he looks so thin. And he was obviously very frustrated and not very happy with, his mobility and his energy levels and everything else. Completely understandable. Nothing we can do about it. Just, let the medications run their course and let his treatment do his deal and try to get him built back up. But, it just struck home the fact that time flies. When they say time flies when you're having fun, it does. It also flies when you're not having fun. And so make the most of each day that you've got as best as you can. And take joy in the small things, because I tell you what, it's all downhill from here. Anyway, just an aside. Let's see. Enter California's wide open. Sorry. I try that again. Yet, if she and Biden lose, Harris would have a lot of proving to do about her electoral appeal before she could even think about running for president again, as she briefly did in 2020. Enter California's wide open 2026 race for governor. What better venue for Harris to prove she has become a much more potent politician than she ever was before? I mean, if she could somehow succeed at that, that would prove she's learned something. Given her popularity scores right now, and in the intervening 2 years, if she and Biden fail to make the presidency again, Kamala Harris, governor of California, sounds right up there with Michael Avenatti, president of the United States. And I have Chris Saliza to thank for that one. Thank you, Matthew James. Watching from the start. Hope you got my B-Day gift to you yesterday. I did. Thank you for your super thanks. That's what they call it when you do a super chat after a video is already posted. I got it, Matthew. I left a comment. Thank you so much. Appreciate it. Hope you're having a good day. Hope you enjoy the show by the time you get back to this point. Let's see. The race is already somewhat crowded with the likes of Lieutenant Governor Elena Koulounakis. I'm probably screwing that up. Former State Senate President Tony Atkins, former State Controller Betty Yee, and current State School Superintendent Tony Thurmond now running. Other potential entrants include Attorney General Rob Bonta, former Attorney General and current Federal Health and Human Services Secretary Javier Becerra. Why does that name sound familiar? And very likely Riverside County Sheriff Chad Bianco, the lone significant Republican possibility at the moment. Harris's current prominence, is that what you want to call it, and greater name recognition would immediately propel her to the forefront of that field. Would it, though? Which could be enough to get her into the runoff election 2 years from now under the state's top 2 jungle primary system. That sounds suggestive. She would also have to have the services of the same campaign consultants who have helped current Governor Gavin Newsom to win after win, gaining national prominence in the process. Yeah, but here's the thing. Gavin Newsom, for all his flaws, and he's got plenty, has charisma. Kamala Harris doesn't. Would Harris then be ripe for an upset, though? That's where her previous nondescript polling record could become relevant. When she ran for San Francisco District Attorney in 2003, she lost in the primary to unpopular incumbent Terrence Hallinan, but later beat him in a runoff. She then was unopposed for re-election in 2007. When she ran for California Attorney General in 2010, in the last state election before the advent of the top 2 system, Harris easily won the Democratic primary, but Republican rival Steve Cooley, then the Los Angeles District Attorney, almost upset her despite the Democrats' huge voter registration advantage. She won by just 6,000 votes out of 9.6 million cast, the outcome not determined until more than 3 weeks after the last vote was cast. So Kamala Harris's popularity, is what you're telling me, has always been very, very tenuous in California. Okay. Easily reelected later. Okay, she set her sights on the Senate seat once held by Democrat Barbara Boxer and drew a Democrat for her runoff opponent. Harris easily beat former Orange County U.S. Representative Loretta Sanchez, but still only got 39% of the primary vote before easing through the runoff with 61%. Altogether, that's an underwhelming performance in this heavily Democratic state. It's true. So each time, she's just squeaked by into success for the most part. When seriously challenged, she's just barely got through. Now let's talk about her presidential run. You going to talk about that? Okay. Harris has emerged lately as the Biden administration's top spokesperson on abortion, though, barnstorming the nation to remind voters, especially women, that former President Donald Trump is responsible for today's state-by-state legal patchwork on the procedure. He is. Donald Trump is responsible for that? Donald Trump controlled the Supreme Court of the United States and their decision? Okay. That's by virtue of his having named 3 conservative Supreme Court justices, all of whom voted to overturn Roe v. Wade. Wow. And have the Supreme Court justices that Donald Trump has put into place, have they all voted along completely partisan lines in every decision? I'll leave that one to the audience. Her railing against women's loss of the right. It was never a right. Not in the legal constitutional sense. It was never a right. But anyway, women's loss of the right to choose in many states may have made her more popular among women voters, but does not appear to have helped her standing among males. Oh, okay. I'm sure that all women really love Kamala Harris from the get-go because she's a woman. The net effect is not yet enough to push her into a positive national rating. And yet you're postulating that she has a chance at becoming governor of California in 2026 if she loses the current election. Okay. A recent USA Today Suffolk poll found that more than half of voters surveyed, 54%, considered Harris not qualified to be president despite 4 years of major national experience. Or perhaps because of it. No. She hasn't had major national experience. She was completely unprepared for the job that she was going for. She agreed to take on the responsibility, and she has sucked at it. She has sucked at it. In every single test, she has sucked at it. And we've been chronicling that on this channel over the years now, time and time again. You know, and it's both, it's a contest of failures. It really is. Between the Biden administration itself not knowing what to do with her, and picking her in the first place and then not knowing what to do with her, and then Kamala Harris herself and her staff being utterly incompetent as to what to do with the role they've been handed. It's really just a perfect storm of stupidity. But really, who's to blame for that? Joe Biden. Joe Biden picked her. He picked her because he knew she would not outshine him in experience or connections or overall political gravitas. But her appearance would be good window dressing for the campaign. And that's about it. That's about as far as the consideration went. And that's how it's rolled out. The upshot is that if Biden and Harris lose this fall, Harris would need to prove herself in a way she never has before she could be considered a serious future presidential candidate. Becoming California governor would do that better than almost anything else. It's true. It's true. If she somehow could become governor of California, that would make her a more legitimate presidential candidate in the future. But let's talk about how much her state loves her for the idea of a top job in the first place during her presidential run. You barely even touched upon that. And what happened? How did California respond to her in the primaries for president? Oh, that's right. They abandoned her. But okay, sure. California governor. I'm sure she has a great shot. I'm sure nothing will happen in the intervening 2 years that would, take the bloom off that rose that is the presidential possibilities of Kamala Harris. I'm sure. But anyway, let's go on to my last article. Not a Kamala Harris article, but an update. An update on a story I looked at a few months ago. An update on a DEI grifter. Of course, all DEI consultants and officers are grifters in a way, but this is more on point, I suppose. Let me zoom in a little bit there. And before I get onto that, let's see. Tier Alexander, Biden didn't pick her. Biden's handlers picked her. Hey, buck stops there. I still believe in the buck stops there. It was Biden's choice. Ultimately, he had to sign off on it. And he decided to run with her, and he's keeping her on. He hasn't replaced her in the meantime. I mean, a dramatic move that he could have made that might have helped his chances. And certainly would have pleased certain Hollywood insiders as if he had dropped Kamala up until or for the secondary run here. If he'd let her resign with dignity or something and prepare her campaign for governor in a few years or something, that would have been something else. And he picked a different vice president. Hollywood would have loved her. The Democrats would have loved it better, and it'd be a better sell. Well, depending on who he picked to replace Kamala. Except he can't replace Kamala because of the very reasons he picked her, because it would look bad. So kind of, stuck in that bargain forever. Let's see. Check your logic. It's mostly the media's fault because they simp for Biden. Which is Kamala's situation, or they do simp for the Democratic Party more often than not, and have been for years. But without any serious pushback, this is what we get. Let's see. Man Squatch. Scribelight. To be fair, sucking is... Oh, sure. Okay. This is a family show. I'll leave that on screen for anybody who wants to read it for themselves, but it's a family show. I guess I kind of opened the door for that one, didn't I? I didn't kick the door in for that one. I just kind of opened it. Anyway, let's move on to our last story of the Sunday stream, and that is an update on one of our previous friends or subjects on this show, and what has happened to her as a result of her business initiative. Former Facebook and Nike diversity manager gets 5 years in prison for $5 million fraud. There she is, everyone. Barbara Furlow Smiles. Barbara Furlow Smiles. If you don't recall, and I should have put a link to this in the description, I will after the show. Somebody in the chat, if you can grab it up for me real quick and put it there, I appreciate it. Did a stream a couple months back looking at this lady, and specifically looking at some videos she had done, I believe after her time at Facebook, but before she was found to be a criminal, where she was promoting such wonderful product ideas like customized face masks for the COVID pandemic. And what made these things customized? Oh, putting on little like bedazzled, sparkly things on them in words that said like king or queen and all that kind of stuff. Little cheap rhinestone hot glue projects, and selling these as they were like luxury items. Also, we looked at a video where she was giving out business advice. It was quite the profile. A former diversity manager at Facebook and Nike was sentenced to 5 years and 3 months in prison for stealing more than $5 million from those companies that had been earmarked for DEI initiatives, federal prosecutors said. And here's the thing. Here's the part they're not going to tell you. Her stealing that money from those DEI initiatives accomplished as much for those companies as if it had been spent on the DEI initiatives. They were just throwing the money away. And I think she realized that, except that, theft is still wrong. Georgia resident Barbara Furlow Smiles, who pleaded guilty to wire fraud in the case in December, stole more than $4.9 million from Facebook, quote, utilizing a scheme involving fraudulent vendors, fake invoices, and cash kickbacks, unquote, Atlanta U.S. Attorney Ryan Buchanan said in a statement. Quote, after being terminated from Facebook, she brazenly continued the fraud as a DEI leader at Nike, where she stole another six-figure sum from their diversity program, unquote, Buchanan said. It's amazing that Facebook didn't catch this before her taking those credentials and moving on to another Fortune 500 company. It's amazing. Furlow Smiles, 38, soon to be 43 by the time she's out of prison, used the money she stole, quote, to fund a luxury lifestyle in California, Georgia, and Oregon, unquote, according to Buchanan's office, which had asked a judge to sentence her to 6.5 years. She was a lead strategist and global head of employee resource groups. Oh boy, ERGs. ERG, they're dynamite. And diversity engagement at Facebook, the subsidiary of Meta. She was not Facebook's top executive for diversity, equity, and inclusion efforts. No, she wasn't the top executive. She was just, global head of employee resource groups. It was a minor role. It's fine. Prosecutors said that while at Facebook, she linked PayPal, Venmo, and Cash App accounts to her Facebook credit cards, and then used those accounts to pay her friends, relatives, and others for purported goods and services for the company that were never delivered. Where was Facebook's auditor or accountants in this process? That's my other question. I mean, it's one thing to be the thief, right? That doesn't absolve, bad accounting practices at the company don't absolve her of her guilt. At the same time, I'm like, how is Facebook actually watching its money? I wonder what shareholders think about that. And if they couldn't catch this lady, they didn't catch her doing this before she moved on to Nike, and she was doing it for years. Got to ask, how many other leaks of millions of dollars in funds are there at Facebook and Meta that we don't know about yet? Or I should say the shareholders don't know about yet. Personally, I couldn't give a rip. I don't have shares in Facebook or Meta or whatever. But it's an interesting question. Quote, the vast majority of the money, unquote, that went to those other people was kicked back to Furlow Smiles, prosecutors said. Prosecutors in a sentencing memo said that Meta determined that Furlow Smiles began the scheme within months of joining the company in 2017, and that an investigation found she had, quote, manipulated individuals who were close to and trusted her, including former interns, unquote, who considered her a mentor. After she was fired from Facebook in mid-2021, was she fired because of this? And why weren't criminal charges levied against her at that time? Why was she able to then move on to Nike with a clean record? All these questions in my mind. Furlow Smiles worked for Nike from November of that year to February 2023 as Senior Director of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion. While there, she executed a theft similar, pardon me, let me try that again. While there, she executed a theft scheme similar to the one she did at Facebook, prosecutors said. Furlow Smiles, who lives in Marietta and an 8-year-old daughter with her husband. Wait, let me try. Furlow Smiles, who lives in Marietta and an 8-year-old daughter with her husband. You mean with an 8-year-old daughter and her husband? That's bizarre. Was sentenced Monday in Atlanta federal court. District Judge Stephen Grimberg. Man, if you wanted to have like a villain name, Grimberg, Also ordered her to pay restitution of $4.98 million to Facebook and another $121,000 to Nike. Likelihood of those companies ever seeing a dime of that money from her? Is she going to be employable after this? No. Meta previously told CNBC that the company cooperated with law enforcement in the investigation of Furlough Smiles, who must report to prison by July 22nd. Prosecutors in their sentencing memo said that in addition to the money Furlough Smiles stole from the company, Meta lost more than $4.5 million, quote, in addition to other expenses such as attorney's fees, which were incurred as a result of Meta having to uncover and investigate her fraud scheme, unquote. Wow, God, if only you guys had some kind of checks and balances in your finances previously to this, that would have prevented her from just grifting money out of company credit cards. $4.5 million using company. What did you think she was doing with the money? Where was the oversight? Now, here's the thing. I'll bet you dollars to donuts. No pun intended, but I'll take it. That the oversight of the DEI branch of Meta / Facebook was non-existent to begin with. It was just a blank check, because all they were doing was checking a box. Yes, we do have a DEI initiative after George Floyd. Anyway, quote, as Meta notes, the harm from Furlough Smiles' criminal conduct cannot be measured purely in financial terms. Really? Okay. Prosecutors recounted in their memo. Her crimes also resulted in anguish among those employees that work closely with her, unquote. What kind of anguish? I don't know. What kind of anguish? Nike told prosecutors that she was, quote, entrusted as a leader for the company, that she would embody the value of doing the right thing, which is one of Nike's key maxims, unquote. Really? You have a DEI department doing the right thing? I hate to tell you this, but DRT doesn't align with DEI. Maybe you'll learn that. I don't know. Quote, as Nike explains, to say that Miss Furlough Smiles violated our trust would be an understatement. Sure. The fraud committed by Miss Furlough Smiles violated the trust of and devastated the employees who managed and worked with her, unquote. Okay. Nike also told prosecutors her, quote, complete lack of accountability or remorse was incredibly disappointing, according to the memo. Sorry, who was accountable for her actions at Nike? I know, like I say, I'm not exonerating her behavior, but you've got two gigantic companies who, at this point, they're not new kids on the block here, right? Facebook's been around for decades. Nike's been around forever. You guys don't have any literal checks and balances on the spending of your employees, that you could have caught this way earlier. I mean, she was starting at Facebook, like they said, months after she got her job in 2017. That means between 2017 and roundabouts 2021, she was not caught. And I'd love to know what she was fired for from Facebook. Was she fired because they discovered her fraud? And if they did at that time, why weren't criminal charges levied much earlier than they had been? That's my question. Quote, when you're standing in court, you read the charges, but a lot of time the charges don't make up the full totality of a human being, Clark said. Oh, sorry, that's Clark. That's Furlough Smiles' lawyer. I skipped a line. Quote, Lance Clark, a lawyer for Furlough Smiles, said, quote, she's a great mother and a good person, unquote. She's demonstrably not a good person. Can't say about her being a mother, but she's not a good person. She stole millions of dollars. She betrayed her coworkers and employers. She lied and lied and lied, and then she did it again. Conceivably, possibly after being caught the first time, although we don't know why she was fired from Facebook. She's not a good person. No. A spokesperson for Meta declined to comment and referred CNBC to the press release issued in the case by prosecutors. Nike did not immediately respond to a request for comment. Because for as much as, again, she's responsible for her actions, Meta and Nike have some problems to fix. Big problems to fix. You got to wonder, if she got away with it this easily, and she's no genius, imagine what else might be going on at those two companies that we'll only find out about in the future. And does it have anything directly to do with DEI? Well, again, got to wonder how much oversight, how much, accountability is being placed on DEI programs in these major companies when they basically see it and have to see it as a write-off because they're not making any money off of it. This is just wasted money in the first place. The fact that she stole wasted money is kind of funny, but hey, either way. All right, I'll take a few more comments from you guys, and then I will wrap this one up. It's been an active show. We had so many subjects, so many topics. Let's see. Advocate Emily, she was bedazzling face masks with it. Yeah, pretty much. She was using the extra money to bedazzle her face mask. No, really. I'll post the. Oh, thank you, Advocatus, for posting the link for the stream in the chat. I'll post that in the description after the show for any reference to people later. Yeah, it was something else. Watching her and her husband try to pitch these, pre-bought plastic face masks with just like sparkly letters on them as some luxury product during the pandemic. This is the entrepreneurial genius that both Facebook and Nike decided was worth employing for their DEI programs. It really does say something, doesn't it? It really does say something. Urculatus Devlin, didn't she charge like an insane amount of money for those masks? I would assume so. If she said in the video, I don't recall, but I'm guessing yes. It's been a while since I watched it, but yes, more likely than not. Let's see. Some emulation. She was fired for selling face masks with MAGA bedazzled on them. Are you making that up or is that true? But yeah, there you go, guys. We got plane crash in Iran. Let me update that story here and see if there's any new news on that one. Not yet. Not as far as CNN is concerned. There's been no update on the fate of the president of Iran. Currently unknown conditions. So I guess we'll keep an eye on that one. If you want to keep an eye on live news in general, there's a channel I particularly like on YouTube. It's Agenda Free TV. He's probably broadcasting right now about this very story. Agenda Free TV is a good news site, always jumps in with big stories when they're happening. He's got access to a whole bunch of feeds from around the world. The guy who hosts it is a guy named Steve Lookner. And I've listened to a lot of his broadcasts, and he really does, as best as is humanly possible, just report and not commentate, which I do appreciate quite a bit. So check out Agenda Free TV. Let's see what else. Any other promotions? Little Shop of Crime. I've talked about this channel before. Little Shop of Crime, a little true crime channel that is growing. Excellent content, excellent quality. I've spoken to the owner of the channel, Steve, on several occasions. Really nice guy, does great stuff. Just had a new video come out. He doesn't do a new video every week or anything. It takes him about a month or two to put them together. But when he does, it's good stuff. So check out Little Shop of Crime on YouTube and tell Steve that Scribe sent you. I'll do like the old advertisements do. Tell him Scribe sent you. It helps with my ego to know that I am important to somebody. Anyway, everybody, thank you so much for joining me. If I missed your comment or anything, please leave it in the comments below after the show posts, and I'll take a look at those. Discord server. Did you know I have a Discord server? Sometimes I remember that I have a Discord server just before the end of the show. And then, because I didn't do so beforehand, I have to prepare a link to the Discord server that people can use to join the Discord server, which I'm doing right now while I'm blabbing to myself. And there's a link to the Discord server. All you have to do is click on that. You find yourself on the landing channel called Say Hello. And in addition to saying hello, you just have to say the secret word. The secret word will tell me that you're not a bot, are a person, and can actually join the Discord server. And today's secret word is bedazzled. Just say hello, bedazzled, and I'll know that you watched the show. Beyond that, look for me Thursday nights, 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern, right here on this channel for TED Excellence. I'm hoping, fingers crossed, and I won't say because I don't want to ruin it, hoping to have a guest on next week's show. I will let you guys know as things proceed. Follow me on Twitter as well, at scribe_light, for updates on the channel, events therein, and otherwise. With that, everyone, thank you for joining me. Moderators, thank you for keeping an eye on things. Even though everyone here is so well behaved, you have very, very little to do. Everybody who donated, either to myself or to the GoFundMes and otherwise, pinned to the top of the chat box. Again, please take a look, especially to the Blind Press link up there. Her and her family could really use with a new water heater, as theirs is broken. And it's going to cost not too much, but every little bit helps. So take a look at that. And with that, everybody, golly gee, as I get myself all conflated up. Also, shout out to my father. Hope he's feeling better. And I'll talk to him soon. And I love him very much. Everybody have a good rest of your Sunday. Hope you have a good rest of your weekend and week ahead of you. Hope you have something planned fun for the Memorial Day weekend upcoming. Hope you're all safe and well. If you're not well, please get well soon. And I'll see you on the next one. Take care. Bye-bye.